Fly ball to left, toward the line. Alou over.
Any baseball fan will tell you when they go to a game, they imagine catching a ball that comes to the stands. But on this night, for an individual, it was a little different.
And leaping up, Alou cannot make the play.
And Moises is unhappy with the fans, but Moises went into the seats. He could have had that ball. A fan interfered with him.
Steve Bartman, a loyal Cubs fan, caught something different that night. Something he'll never forget. Steve Bartman was an ordinary Chicago Cubs fan attending a crucial game at Wrigley Field on October 14th, 2003. Little did he know that one moment during Game 6 of the National League Championship Series would change his life forever. Bartman, a lifelong Cubs supporter, had no public profile before that day. He was just one of 39,000 fans packed into the stadium, hoping to witness history as the Cubs were just 5 outs away from reaching the World Series for the first time since 1945. The stakes for the Cubs were incredibly high. They endured decades of frustration, and the franchise had been haunted by the infamous Curse of the Billy Goat, a superstition dating back to 1945, claiming that the Cubs were cursed and would never win a championship. The team had fought their way to Game 6, leading the series 3-2 against the Florida Marlins. A win that night would secure their place in the World Series, finally giving the fans a chance to witness the end of their 58-year drought. Luis Castillo worked a full count against Pryor, fouling off several pitches to stay alive. On the next pitch, Castillo hit a high foul ball toward the left field line. Cubs left fielder Moises Alou sprinted to the wall, tracking the ball with every intention of making the catch. As he reached the wall, the ball began to descend, and it looked like Alou had a play on it. However, sitting in the front row, Steve Bartman reached out, just like many fans in that section, trying to catch the ball. He made contact but not cleanly, and the ball deflected off his hands. Alou leaped, but missed it. He immediately jumped in frustration, gesturing angrily at Bartman, visibly upset that the fan had interfered with his chance to record the second out of the inning. The crowd quickly turned. At first there was confusion, people trying to understand what had just happened. Then came the realization that Bartman's interference had potentially cost the Cubs an out. What followed was shock, disbelief, and anger. The boos started raining down from the stands, directed squarely at Bartman, whose face reflected his growing understanding of the gravity of what just occurred. Fans around him started yelling, pointing, and swearing, turning the moment into a hostile environment for him. Alou's reaction only added to the tension. His visible anger, the way he pointed at Bartman and threw his hands up in frustration, stoked the crowd's fury. It was clear that Alou believed he would have made the catch if not for the interference, and his frustration fed into the crowd's growing outrage. The atmosphere at Wrigley Field shifted dramatically. Mark Pryor, who had been dominant up to that point, threw the next pitch as a ball, walking Castillo. The momentum started slipping away. With Castillo on base, the Marlins sensed a window of opportunity. The next batter, Ivan Rodriguez, singled, moving Castillo to second. Now the Cubs' comfortable lead began to feel precarious. Then a critical error by Cubs shortstop Alex Gonzalez on a routine double allowed the inning to continue. The Marlins took full advantage, piling on runs as the Cubs' defense fell apart. By the end of the inning, the Marlins had scored 8 runs, turning a 3-0 Cubs lead into an 8-3 Marlins advantage. The collapse was swift and devastating. The Cubs never recovered from the inning, losing the game and ultimately the series. What started as a seemingly routine foul ball turned into a nightmare for the Cubs and their fans, with Steve Bartman at the center of it all. As the reality of the incident settled in, the atmosphere at Wrigley Field shifted dramatically. The excitement of Game 6 quickly turned to anger and hostility. Steve Bartman, who had innocently reached for a foul ball, became the target of a furious crowd. What started as boos escalated into personal attacks, with fans near Bartman shouting and blaming him for the Cubs' collapse. The chants of "throw him out" filled the stadium, and some even called him a curse. The mood was thick with frustration, filled by years of Cubs heartbreak, and then the belief that Bartman had sealed their fate. The hostility grew rapidly, with security noticing the threat of Bartman's safety. Fans began throwing cups, food, and other objects in his direction. Realizing the danger, security intervened. They surrounded Bartman and escorted him out of the stand, shielding him from the barrage of insults and projectiles. Despite the protection, the angry crowd followed, hurling more insults as he was taken away. The game, once filled with excitement, was now chaotic. Bartman was swiftly removed and taken to a secure location, but the damage had been done. Too many Cub fans, he had become the symbol of their broken World Series dreams. The media frenzy surrounding Steve Bartman's infamous moment began instantly. After the foul ball, what started as a charged situation at Wrigley Field quickly became a national spectacle. Fueled by the media's relentless focus on Bartman, TV cameras zoomed in on him, broadcasting his face to millions. Within hours, his image became linked to what many fans saw as a betrayal. News outlets replayed the footage over and over, making Bartman the central figure in the Cubs' failed attempt to reach the World Series. The incident escalated across traditional and social media. Sports talk shows dissected every detail, framing Bartman as the fan who ruined the Cubs' chances, ignoring other contributing factors like errors from the players. As discussions intensified, online forums buzzed with speculation about Bartman's identity, and soon his private information, including his address and phone number, leaked online. Some fans even organized efforts to locate him, turning the attention into a full-blown manhunt. The backlash wasn't limited to angry fans. Bartman became the target of death threats, with some calling him to pay for his perceived role in the Cubs' collapse. News reporters camped outside his home, amplifying the media storm. Bartman's life was upended almost overnight, leaving him with nowhere to hide from the anger and ridicule. Friends and family spoke in his defense, describing him as a humble, lifelong Cubs fan who acted instinctively. Despite their efforts, the public outrage only grew. The psychological toll on Bartman was evident. After the chaos, Steve Bartman quickly withdrew from the public eye. Faced with intense media scrutiny, death threats, and widespread ridicule, Bartman made the decision to disappear. He quit his job, moved away from his familiar surroundings, and cut all ties with the media. Rather than capitalize on his newfound infamy, he chose silence. Bartman turned down offers for interviews, endorsement deals, and public appearances, rejecting the spotlight that many others would have eagerly embraced in similar situations. The decision contrasted sharply with other infamous moments in sports. While figures like Tanya Harding and Pete Rose sought attention or financial gain from their notoriety, Bartman refused to profit from his role in a historic controversy. His choice to remain out of the public eye only filled the mystique surrounding him. The public began to view him as a reclusive figure, someone who had vanished into obscurity, refusing to engage with the media or public interest. Bartman's silence became his defining characteristic. In a world where many individuals in the spotlight are eager to tell their side of the story to gain financial benefit from their infamy, Bartman's refusal to engage shaped how he was perceived. His disappearance became an essential part of his narrative. An ordinary man who found himself thrust into an extraordinary situation and chose to retreat rather than exploit it. Years after Steve Bartman disappeared from the public eye, curiosity surrounding his whereabouts continued to grow. As a private investigator was eventually hired to find him, and the task was tracking down Bartman proved to be near impossible. The investigator started by reviewing Bartman's last known addresses and workplaces, speaking with former colleagues and friends to piece together a timeline of Bartman's movements since the incident. Many sources remained tight-lipped, but several were sympathetic, describing Bartman as a kind, private individual who wanted nothing more than to live in peace. Despite Bartman's careful attempts to stay out of the spotlight, the investigator began to close in on his trail. The search was complicated by Bartman's complete withdrawal from the public, but this only heightened the mystery. The investigator eventually located Bartman after following a series of leads. However, Out of respect for Bartman's wishes, the investigator decided not to publicly disclose his finding. Bartman had gone into hiding to protect himself from the relentless scrutiny and harassment he had endured. Revealing his location would only disrupt his quiet life he had fought so hard to maintain. When the investigator finally found Bartman, he was confronted in person. Bartman's response was simple and firm. "You'll hear from my legal team." Bartman's determination to remain private had been unwavering. Even after being located, the investigator noted that it had taken months to find him, 3 months to be exact, and acknowledged that it had been damn near impossible. After a 108-year championship drought, the Chicago Cubs finally won the World Series.
Done it before. Here's the 0-1. This is going to be a tough play. Bryant, the Cubs winning the World Series. Bryant makes the play. It's over, and the Cubs have finally won it all. 8-7-10.
Ending what was referred to as the curse of the Billy Goat. This victory marked a new era for the team, and with it came a significant gesture of reconciliation towards Steve Bartman. Following the historic win, the organization took opportunity to reach out to Bartman. Cubs president of baseball operations Theo Epstein personally contacted Bartman, offering an apology for the treatment he had endured in the aftermath of the 2003 incident. Bartman, who had kept a low profile for over a decade, accepted the apology with grace. In an unexpected, heartwarming gesture, the Cubs presented Bartman with a 2016 World Series championship ring, a symbol of both the team's victory and their acknowledgement of Bartman's undeserved scapegoating. The ring engraved with Bartman's name was a token of forgiveness and an effort to mend the relationship between Bartman and the Cubs community. Bartman released a public statement expressing his gratitude, saying he was deeply moved by the gesture and that he hoped it would bring closure to the chapter. He emphasized that he had always been a loyal Cubs fan and was thrilled to see the team's success. The Cubs gesture was widely praised and an act of reconciliation and a reminder of the impact of sports on individuals' lives.